So good evening, doctors. I Shuman on behalf of Shield Healthcare, welcoming you all in medical session organized by the Patna Obstetrics and Gynecological Society in association with Infertility Committee of FOXI on recent updates in ovulation induction protocols. And first of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Dr. Vinita Singh, Madam, President, Patna Obstetrics and Gynecological Society, and the Secretary, POGS, Dr. Supriya Jaswal, Madam. So it is my honor to introduce Dr. Supriya Jaswal, Madam. Madam is the Secretary, PUGS, as already I mentioned, and Madam is the East Zone Coordinator, Adolescent Health Committee, FOXI. So Dr. Amita Sinha, Madam. Madam is the Member, Executive Committee, POGS Patna, and Executive Committee Member, ISO-PARB. And Dr. Niva Mohan, Madam. Madam is the Joint Secretary, Patna Obstetrics and Gynecological Society, and Secretary, Patna Menopause Society. And Dr. Sriti Smars, Madam. Madam is the consultant at Matri Maternity and the Care IVF Center and a member of Infertility Committee of POGS. So with this short introduction, I request Dr. Supriya Jaswal, Madam, to take over the session for further followings. Thank you very much.
So thank you for the kind introduction. Good evening, dear esteemed dignitaries present here on the dais and off the dais. I bring warm greetings from Team Patna OBGY Society. So this is a webinar designed on infertility updates by Patna OBGY Society in association with Infertility Committee of FOXI. Let us hear the fertility updates and recent updates in ovulation induction protocols from the galaxy of experts here. Requesting you all to take the golden opportunity to get your doubts cleared from these experts and do put your questions in the chat box. To begin with, let us have the FOXI theme video of the dynamic President FOXI, Dr. Shanta Kumari, Madam. Kindly play the video.
Dear friends, Foxians and women of my country, I am Dr. Shanta Kumari, President of the Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Societies of India. As a little girl, I told myself that I have to become something to make a difference. I always believed that if I desired something wholeheartedly, there is a positive force which makes it happen. And here I am, friends, standing in front of you as the 60th President of FOXI, the 38,000 strong committed body of OB-GYNs taking care of women's health in our country. As a young girl, I realized that women play a key role in this world, just like Mother Nature or Stree Shakti as we revere it. It is a guiding force behind all forms of God's creation. And it's only a woman who can actually create a new life.
Hi, I'm Kareena Kapoor Khan and I'm so happy to be here with you, if only on video. Pregnancy is a beautiful experience and I have loved having my babies. I congratulate Dr. Shanta Kumari as taking over the 60th president of this eminent organization.
Stree Shakti is the embodiment of 5 elements: the sky, the air, the water, the earth and the fire. Any imbalance in any of these 5 elements creates chaos and calamities. Similarly, when a woman's health is neglected, it disrupts the universal equilibrium. The intimate link between environment and human well-being is very well known. With increasing awareness of the need for clean water, pollution-free air and pesticide-free food.
Hi, I'm PV Sindhu. Well, it's such a beautiful feeling for me to be an empowered girl, to be a girl in a nurtured and a safe environment.
Protecting health by preserving nature and its ecosystem is easier than curing any disease. So we have taken up the concept of minimizing the female morbidity and mortality and fetal effects by mitigating the adverse impact of environment. My theme this year goes beyond FOXI's commitment towards women's healthcare. Foxy for all, always.
Foxy for All is another inspiring campaign. What you do in this organization impacts the lives of all of us women in India.
And Dheera to stop violence against women. Foxy for all, always will strive to make the girl a Sahasi with Swachhata, Samruddhi and Swasthya. To be Surakshit with Shakti to reach her full potential as a woman.
Dr. Shanta Kumari with the theme Foxy for All Always and Dheera Stop Violence Against Women will empower many girls. I firmly believe that only a safe girl, Surakshit Kanya, can grow into a healthy woman, Swasth Mahila.
Violence against women. I think it's a silent pandemic, and I'm so happy to be a part of this campaign.
If any woman has a problem, where does she go to? Not to the police or court or the lawyers. She goes to her friendly OB-GYN, who is her first point of contact for help. So I have started Dheera, an initiative close to my heart, to sensitize our OB-GYNs, the police, the public, and to partner with men to say no to violence against women.
I completely support her vision and mission as President Foxy and also especially support her campaign, Dheera Stop Violence Against Women.
A healthy environment is the core of a woman's health. A healthy woman makes a family happy and a strong nation. I, as the President of Foxy, declare my commitment towards women's health and safety.
Thank you. Just stop the video. May I have the CV of Dr. Vinita Singh, madam? So we cannot accomplish all that we need to do without working together. So here is our President Fox, Dr. Vinita Singh, who takes us, guides us together for anything and everything. So Vinita, she is Associate Professor in the Department of OBGYN, PM NMCH Patna. She is consultant at Care Hospital and IVF Center. At present, she is the President of POGS. She has held many positions in Foxy ICOG Governing Council member, YTP Committee Chairperson of Foxy, Joint Secretary, Clinical Secretary, and many other posts in our office of Patna Society. Then she'd been a member of Safe Motherhood Committee and many other committees of Foxy. She had been a great organizer, having conferences of organizing secretary of the Youth Conference NICON 2019, invited faculty in workshop FIGO Rio 2018. She had participated in many national and international conferences and been awarded by M.G. Mishra Award and George Mahoney Award in 2012. So with these words, may I request Dr. Vinita Singh, madam, to give the welcome address.
Thank you, Supriya, for such a wonderful, nice words. Very good evening and a warm greetings on behalf of Patna Obstetric and Gynecological Society in today's webinar on fertility update. We all are experiencing a tenure of Dr. Shanta Kumari Shetran, President Foxy, which is full of academic activities and the smooth and prompt functioning of Foxy office under able guidance of Secretary General Dr. Madhuri Patel. Really, it's a pleasurable moment and feeling extremely honored to welcome Chief Guest Padma Shri Dr. Kamini Rao, Madam. She will be joining very soon, I think. She is past President Foxy.
Madam has joined.
Madam had joined.
Madam. Pranam, Madam.
Already joined.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Pranam, Madam.
Pranam.
So yeah, Madam. So she is past President Foxy, who has achieved a height in the field of infertility and IVF. Here, I would like to acknowledge her artistic energy and diversity in the field of medicine. So once again, I welcome you, Madam, as chief guest of today's webinar. I welcome another towering personality known for his academic acumen and versatile nature is none but Dr. Basav Mukherjee, who is Vice President, East Zone Foxy, and I invite you, sir, as guest of honor in today's program. I'm extremely honored and privileged to welcome star of Foxy, past President Dr. Nanita Parshekar, as guest speaker. I can say that she is true blend of determination and enthusiasm and role model for all infertilologists. I welcome our very own Dr. Anita Singh, past Vice President East Zone Foxy. She is full of energy and dynamism, a well-known clinician. I welcome you, Anita Di. I welcome teacher of teacher, and I can say my mentor in Patna Obstetric and Gynecological Society, known for her methodical and disciplined personality, is none but Dr. Pramila Modi, Madam. I welcome you, Madam, to chair today's session. I welcome Chairperson Infertility Committee Foxy, Dr. Kundan Ingale, who is so dynamic and active. Everyone is experiencing pan-India. And also Dr. Subhash Malya, Chairperson Endoscopic Committee. I welcome both of you. Dr. Himanshu Roy, who is Chairperson Infertility Committee POGS, who is pioneer in the field of IVF and infertility in Bihar. I welcome you, Himanshu, if you are there. Dr. Priyanko Roy, a very dynamic personality, full of energy and enthusiasm. So I welcome you, Priyanko, and wish you all the best for your coming election.
Thank you, ma'am.
I welcome Dr. Ranu Singh as chairperson, who is also chairperson of MTP Committee, POGS. I welcome all my seniors, past presidents, who is present in this webinar. I welcome my office bearer, Dr. Supriya Jaiswal, Secretary POGS, Dr. Amita Sinha, who is also convening today's program, Dr. Nibha Mohan, Dr. Meena Saman, and everyone who is present. I also welcome Dr. Smriti Sparsh, co-chair Infertility Committee, POGS, and also she is convening today's program. I think she is one of the budding gynecologists in Patna. I welcome all my friends, juniors, and all participants. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome Shield Connect personnel who has sponsored today's program. So I welcome everyone on behalf of Patna Obstetrics and Gynecology Society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam, for the wonderful welcome address. Now, moving forward, by lighting the lamp of knowledge, we can dispel the darkness of ignorance. So let us invoke the blessings of the Almighty and light the lamp of knowledge. May I request that all the dignitaries on the dais to kindly join hands in this virtual lighting of the lamp.
Kurutvang kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepajyotir namostute Deepajyotir namostute Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shubham kurutvam kalyanam Arogyam.
Thank you, everyone. Now, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. This is true of our chief guest, Dr. Padma Shri, Dr. Kamini Rao Madam, a true Foxian and a persistent learner who spreads knowledge everywhere, had been constantly working as a hardcore Foxian. Madam is Padma Shri in 2014 in recognition of distinguished service in the field of reproductive medicine. Karnataka State Award for Invaluable Service in the Field of Medicine in 1997. She was honored with Karnataka Vaidya Ratna Award in 2021 and Lifetime Achievement Award by Karnataka State Obstetrics and Gynecological Association in December 2021. Madam was honorary founder of Fellowship in Reproductive Medicine by the Karnataka State Obstetrics and Gynecological Association in December 2021, then Distinguished NBE Teacher Award by Association of National Board of Accreditation Institutions on 5th September, CME Excellence Dronacharya Award for Exceptional CME Efforts in Gynae IVF Award, Lifetime Achievement Award from the Federation of OBGYN Societies of India, FOXY in the year 2019, listed in top 10 doctors of India by Google in 2010, Outstanding Women Obstetrician and Gynecologist Award by the International, that is FOXY, in Rome in 2012. So with these words, Madam has so many Accolades to her credit, Madam. With these words, I request you to kindly bless us with your words of wisdom.
Thank you, Patna Obstetrics and Gynecology Society, in association with the Infertility Committee of FOXY. I think Patna is known to be, through the years, ancient, that the entire seat of learning has been from Patna. And it continues the same tradition, because even when I started my career in FOXY, when I campaigned from FOXY, I think Patna was one society that stood steadfast behind me. Even though they didn't know who I was, they only knew that I was a piece of dynamite that came in there, and I spoke. And they said, "Who is this girl?" And I just said, "Look, don't bother who I am. I'm your daughter, and I'm coming to get your blessings." And the first thing that all of you said was, "It doesn't matter. You've given knowledge and you'll go ahead." And in fact, if you say, this is one thing I can say, every time I come to Patna, there is such a big crowd to welcome me. For every oration that I give, it's almost like homecoming, because the knowledge, the thirst for knowledge in Patna is so huge. Every oration, the house is packed, the halls are packed, and I can see that thirst for CME is so much. So every time I come to give my best to Patna, it's almost like I'm so eager to come to Patna to speak. So when Supriya and the entire team of Patna invited me to come as a chief guest, I could not say no. It's always nice to be part of it, even though it's a virtual this thing. Webinars like this spread a lot of knowledge, especially for people who are busy in their practices. This is one way of passive learning. And infertility is increasing by leaps and bounds. And this is something which Corona has done. It has awoken a giant within us. It has actually increased so many people's learning. And I think this should continue even when Corona and mask and everything else of 6 feet, etc., of distancing, this distance learning and this virtual learning should not go. This should continue along with our meetings, etc. I think this is a cheap way of learning, but nevertheless, it's one of the best ways of giving a lot of knowledge, where you would not have been able to get the best of speakers purely because of distances. You will be able to get that knowledge without having them to fly down and to be able to be with you, but that knowledge can be shared. So thanks to the internet and thanks to technology, we are now able to meet each other just with the touch of a button. Infertility committee as such has been meeting more often than other committees, but at the same time, knowledge exchange, you don't learn everything, but at least even if you learn a few practice points that you take back to practice in your daily clinics, that's good enough, because at the end, the patients that will benefit with that practice is what I'm looking at. A lot of things that we do is experience based, and I'm very, very happy that the kind of topics that you have put across is very relevant, very current, and I'm sure that this knowledge is going to a long way with so many people coming on board with this kind of information being spread. I wish this Patna Obstetric and Gynae Society, along with the Infertility Committee of FOXY, all the very best, and also the Shield company, Pharma, for having organized this program, because in fact, Pharma as well as the FOXY, they all go hand in hand. We can't separate the two. Thank you both for allowing knowledge to spread. It is always said that blood, money, and knowledge has to always be in circulation. Otherwise, they can cause problems and it will be valueless. So I wish you all the best, and I hope that this webinar will reach many more people and more webinars will take place in the future. Thank you very much for calling me for this conference, and all those who are taking part in this particular elections. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your wonderful words. And thank you, madam. We Patna people are really close to you, and we had jam-packed halls there to listen to you, to hear your orations. So thank you very much for accepting to be the chief guest today, ma'am.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. So moving ahead, we are fortunate to have amongst us as guest of honor for today, Dr. Basa Mukherjee, sir, who is the Vice President Foxy. To put a quote for him, motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. This is very true of him to be one of the most organized Foxian today, as it was obvious from his VP report at the MCMs. Everybody appreciates him for this. So Dr. Basa Mukherjee is Vice President-elect Foxy 2021-22. At present, he is Foxy, Vice President Foxy, Vice President Bengal OBGY Society, FIGO Coordinator, South Asia Safe Abortion Committee, Founder Secretary ISOPAP Kolkata Chapter, Founder Secretary IAGE Kolkata Chapter, Secretary IRC India East, then member of ICOG Governing Council, Organizing Secretary of AICOG in 2023, Young Gynecologist Awardee AOFOG 2011 at Taipei, and contributed more than 30 chapters in textbooks. With these words, thank you, sir, for accepting to be the guest of honor. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Supriya. Thank you, Dr. Vinita, and members of the POGS of Patna OBGYN Society. Recently, I was having a discussion with one of the pharma companies. I think it was a ZSM or area sales manager. And then he was mentioning, sir, Patna mein aap gaye hain? I said, yes, I've been there a few times. And then on discussion, I was bringing up all the names. I was bringing up Dr. Meena, Dr. Nibha, Dr. Abharani Sinha, Dr. Himangshu, everybody. I was just naming them one by one. And then you were saying, Acha, aapko isko bhi pehchante, isko bhi pehchante. I said, we've been there for quite some time. And it's been, Patna is very close, I'm echoing the words of Dr. Kamini Rao. It's been like family to me. It's we get inspired by what Patna does, in not just as a person, but also in Bengal society. Patna has led the way in many ways in East Zone. You've done amazing conferences over the last few years, which we have appreciated from far in Calcutta. And it has been wonderful interacting with you, and you are always very, very close. About the topic today, ovulation induction. And one more thing about webinars. I think one thing which we all have to understand, that still, though the pandemic is waning out, there are still many webinars happening on every particular day and time, and they overlap with each other. And the best way to grab eyeballs for any webinar is to make it short, which is a wonderful thing of this webinar. There's just 3 talks, and also get to star at people to attract here for your faculty. And here you got star people in the form of Dr. Nandita is here, Kundan is here, and Himangshu is here. So you've got star people, you've got the people who actually deal with the subject, and as Dr. Kamini Rao said, we expect wonderful academics and nothing different from all of them. Ovulation induction is a real pressing topic. It's moved, it was always there in the general gynecologist domain, but then again it was, then it moves up into the IVF clinics. But at the general gynecologist, but ovulation induction, at what level to do, how much to go through, whether to add a folliculometry to it. I think those are things which so many things which we need to ask. And I think it's more and more general gynecologists or gynecologists who do basic infertility work would like to do more of ovulation induction, use more gonadotropins, and lead everything to be done till the IUI step. I think is something which has to be crystal clear. The OHSS sphere and everything. I think most of it will be discussed today, and we look forward to some excellent academics in the hour and a half to come. Thank you very much for inviting me. Supriya invites me for many of these webinars. I never say no, because Patna is always a family, and it's so wonderful to be here. Pranams to Pramila Madam, Anita Madam, and all seniors and all colleagues of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, moving ahead, we have Infertility Chairperson Foxy, Dr. Kundan Inger. He is a dedicated chairperson of Infertility Committee of Foxy, and he really helped me out along with Dr. Himanshu Roy, who is the chairperson of Patna OBGY Society Infertility Committee. So, Dr. Kundan sir has been awarded for the best research paper in SR 2019, best paper SR in 2018, and so many others. Director at Nirmiti Clinic, Center for Assisted Reproduction and Endoscopy, Pune, General Secretary, POGS 2019-20, Founder Treasurer, Maharashtra Chapter of ISAR, Founder Member of Pune Association of Endoscopic Surgeons. Then he has presented research paper at ASRM 2020 and perspective RCT of estradiol valrate versus estradiol hemihydrate in FET. Director MOSES BASKET IRT Bank Pune, and then presented first time research at 6th COGI World Congress at Vietnam on use of CSF subcutaneously for thin endometrium. So these were his achievements. So sir, over to you for a word and address the gathering.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, heartfelt thanks to Patna OBGYN Society and President Dr. Vinita Singh and Secretary Dr. Supriya Jaiswal for inviting Infertility Committee FOXY to join on this program with Patna OBGYN Society. I think I'm really grateful to you because the moment Supriya did mention about ovulation induction, one of my very favorite topic and close to my heart. I never thought about, though we had a conference today, but then we thought of that, no, I want to come. And I have seen, I did a few programs with Patna OBGYN Society till now, and very happy to see that enthusiasm from all of you. And really, we as other societies has to learn a lot of things from all of you. I think a great, energetic and enthusiastic society. And we really thank you, our chief guest, Dr. Kamini Rao, Madam, and Dr. Basav Mukherjee, guest of honor, for joining us for this academic feast and gave some blessings to all of us to continue our academic work. Many thanks, first of all, to my president, Dr. Shanta Kumari, and our Honorary General Secretary, Dr. Madhuri Patel, because I think it's their vision, what we are following in this year. And the theme for this FOXY for all and always stop violence against women. And I think we had a vision to do academic work. We had a vision to do some social gatherings and social programs. And we are every day trying to accept those challenges and try to fulfill. That is what FOXY is committed for. And it's great senior FOXY past president, even Dr. Nandita, he is here. So I think look into their footsteps. I think we are trying to reach and do what FOXY is committed to its member. And really thank you all of you for being here. Won't take much time. So Supriya, a special thanks to you for inviting me to also as a speaker. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. So we are over with the, thank you very much for accepting all this invitation. I thank everyone now, and I hand over the platform to Dr. Amita Sinha, the convener of the scientific program, along with others. Thank you.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizer, Dr. Vinita Singh and Dr. Supriya Jaiswal, for giving me this opportunity. A very good evening to all of you. After this inaugural session, now we move on to the scientific session. And I must say that this is star-studded program. All the stars from FOXY and from POX are present today here. In this first session, we have great speaker, Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, past president FOXY, and he is having both a beautiful face along with some great knowledge. Madam, you are most welcome in the Patna Society. And to chair her session, we have two esteemed chairpersons from Patna. Both these chairpersons are strong pillars of Patna OBGYN Society, and we are fortunate to have them here for this program, and we have been getting their advices throughout our programs and our day-to-day problems of our society. To introduce her, can I have the CV of Pramila Modi, madam? Now I invite Dr. Pramila Modi, madam. Madam is consultant obstetrician and gynecologist at Modi Nursing Home, Patna. Madam has been vice chairperson as well as scientific chairperson in 57th AICOG 2014, which was held at Patna. She is past president Patna OBGYN Society and ISOPA past contributor and executive member. Madam is also past chairperson in Akhil Bharatiya Marwadi Sammelan. She has published many articles in both national and international journals and contributed chapters in various books of Foxy and others. She has keen interest in public awareness activities, and for that she has prepared several informative booklets in Hindi and English regarding pregnancy care, safe motherhood, contraception, nutrition, and menopause for patients' benefits. Madam has been awarded with Ethicon Traveling Fellowship in 1977 for higher training in OBGY, and Madam is also a recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award of Bihar OBGY Society. Madam has keen interest in public awareness, as I told you earlier, and midlife and geriatric gynecology. I welcome you, Madam, to this platform. Our next chairperson is none other than past Vice President of Foxy, Dr. Anita Singh, Madam, a great clinician, a great person. Madam has been ex-professor of Patna Medical College and past President Patna OBGY Society, Vice President Foxy 2020. Madam was also chairperson of Endocrinology Committee of Foxy from 2014 to 2016. She has served as a governing council member of ICOG from 2015 to 2020, chief consultant of JP Hospital, Patna. She has organized Yuva Foxy as an organizing chairperson, ECOB at Patna in 2017 as an organizing chairperson, and she has been organizing secretary at AICOG 2014 at Patna. We all have witnessed her organizational capability, and we Patnaites are very proud to have both of you as a chair for this program. I welcome you, Madam. Now I request Pramila Modi, Madam, to kindly introduce and invite our speaker, Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, Madam. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Amita. Respected Dr. Vinita Singh, President of Patna Obstetric and Gynecological Society, Padma Shri Dr. Kamini Rao, Chief Guest of today's event, Dr. Basab Mukherjee, Guest of Honor and Vice President Foxy, Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, Star Speaker of today, Dr. Kundan Ingle, Dr. Himanshu Roy, Dr. Anita Singh, she is with me as chairperson today, Dr. Priyankur, Dr. Rano Singh, Dr. Subhash Malia, junior and senior colleagues, my dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to one and all. At the very outset, I thank Dr. Vinita and Dr. Supriya for making me part of this important event. I'm delighted to introduce none other than Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, whom we all know very well. Still, to fulfill the formalities, I am pleased to introduce Nandita. Her credentials are, she is MD, FICOG, FCPS, FRCOG. She is a recipient of honorary FRCOG from Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, UK. Professor in OBGYN at D.Y. Patil Medical College, Navi Mumbai. She's director at 9 Bloom IVF centers. She's a teacher for super specialty degree, FNB reproductive area. She is practicing for more than 25 years in the field of infertility. Currently, she's president EMOGS for the year 2020 to 2022. She was former president of Foxy, former president of MOGS, former president of IAG, and former chairperson MSR for 2016-2018. You know, you'll be surprised. She has written more than 150 chapters and received 18 awards, delivered 61 orations, delivered more than 1,000 talks, recipient of Bharat Gaurav Award at House of Commons, London 2014. She's recipient of IMA Award for contribution towards medical field, IMA Empowered Woman Award in the year 2019. Frost and Sullivan Best Practice Award for IVF 2013, and Women Super Achievers Award in 2019. Apart from all these, it is a true fact that AICOG, 57th AICOG 2014, which was held in Patna, has brought the members of POGS and Nandita Palshekar to very close distance. We are very close to each other. Personally, I know her. She is ever smiling, soft-spoken, and has deep knowledge, vast experience, and is a good helping friend for many Foxians. With this, I request Dr. Anita Singh that I really, after finish it, to take over and introduce the topic. Last but not the least, and Nandita, wish you all for the best for the coming election, and we are all with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramila Di. And I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to say something about the topic. I know the topic is has been selected very wisely. That is the most difficult aspect of IVF, I must say, ovulation induction in poor responders. And we do have the best speaker for this, because I know Dr. Nandita is not an ordinary infertility specialist. They are dealing all sorts of difficult and complicated cases most of the time, not only from India, but from other countries also. So I think she'll be the best person to highlight on this difficult situation in clinical practice of infertility specialists. And I know from her huge experience, I think very few people in the world have so much of experience as the team of Dr. Nandita does have. So I think I will not waste any time by coming in between her talk and my remarks. But after she has finished, of course, from a general gynecologist point of view, I will be summarizing the topic. Thank you. So I invite Dr. Nandita to deliver your talk.
Thank you, Dr. Pramila, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Dr. Anita. I think I was overwhelmed listening to everybody talking so beautiful about Patna. I think you are, we were chatting some other day, 2-3 days ago, and they said all Biharis are very lovable people. They welcome you with a heart which is so generous. And today, after listening to Dr. Kamini Rao, Dr. Basab, I think that is so true, because you make everyone feel. I used to think Bihar is my Maika, but I think everybody feels that. So I think you all are wonderful. And of course, my daughter-in-law is from Bihar. Yeah. My father was governor there. So I have a very, very close affinity to all of you all. I love you all. And I am so, I don't know, I'm so overwhelmed that you have said that you all will all support me. Thank you for that very much. Thank you very much for that. And Supriya and Vinita, thank you for inviting me. Kundan, of course, Priyankar, I can see. Nibha is the young person on the horizon, but I think everybody is doing so well. Amita, thank you for inviting me. And Smriti, I think, is the young one. I will just start my talk. Put this down 1 sec. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, we can see. You have to go to the first slide, I guess.
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, I did that mistake. Sorry. So I have to go to the first slide. Yeah. Okay, but that sharing screen, I want to pull that down.
No, we can see.
No. I want to pull that down. Okay. Okay. Because otherwise it comes in the way. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be very short and sweet and very crisp and to the point. When we're talking about poor ovarian reserve, remember, how do you know that your patient has poor ovarian reserve? Identification is very, very important. And remember, age is something that's really relevant. So 35 and above, elderly, we call that elderly. Definitely age matters. It is the ovarian reserves keep dropping drastically after 35. So we need to keep that in mind. And also two markers which are there, antral follicle count and AMH, are very good markers. So today the whole concept has changed of treating patients according to the Poseidon group. So if you look at Poseidon group 1 and 2, these are patients who have everything normal. You know, AMH is normal, antral follicle count is normal. But when you give gonadotropins, they just don't give you the eggs. So this is a poor response to the drugs. And Poseidon group 3 and Poseidon group 4 are the people who have low reserve, low AMH, low antral follicle count, and obviously they respond poorly. So this is what you need to remember. Group 1 is under 35, group 2 is above 35, group 3 is again under 35, and group 4 is above 35. So generally, the treatments in group 1, if you give androgens and all, they do help. So today I'm just going to talk about a few aspects of it. So controlled ovarian hyperstimulation is what we use. So as I said, the poor responders, Rohan, the poor responders are the AMH below 2. Between 1 nanogram to 2 nanogram are the poor responders with a poor response, and below 1 is negligible response. So we need to keep that in mind when we are counseling patients. So how do I maximize the ovarian response? Usually high doses of gonadotropin are used in my practice. And remember that all preparations are usually good. And in poor responders, I actually prefer the HMG combination or recombinant FSH plus recombinant LH. The protocols which can be implemented are antagonist protocol, mild stimulation protocol, long agonist protocol, and ultra short. But I'm going to take you just through the two ones which are popular, which is antagonist. So you use injections from day 2 to day 10, FSH or HMG. HMG is what I use, and add antagonists when the leading follicle is 14, and then give the trigger. That's it. It's a simple protocol. You can use it for all your poor responder patients, whether you're doing IUI or IVF. Then the mild stimulation protocol is like yesterday only. I had a patient who had done 3 stimulations and just got one egg. So the cost of taking that 450 HMG every day for 10 days was also too much. And plus, forget the cost, she was fed up of the injections. So then I gave her this mild stimulation protocol because she did not want to go for donor eggs. So clomiphene citrate, 100, 150, 300 also I've used in patients. And from day 2 to day 6. And then day 6, I start the HMG. And of course, antagonist is the flexible. Whenever the leading follicle becomes 14 mm, you start antagonist daily. So these two are the protocols which one must remember and one must use for poor responders. I think these are very, very simple protocols, and these are the ones which will give you good results. So if you look at the protocols that we use, is we give DHEA for at least 12 weeks. Minimum 6 weeks if the patient doesn't give us any time. Testosterone gel is something I use a lot. Antagonist with high dose HMG, either 300 or 450 with CC or gonadotropins and antagonists. And if I'm doing a fresh transfer, I do a day 2 transfer, because if I have 1 or 2 embryos only, then I don't wait till day 3. Of course, there is higher cancellation rate and low birth rate. Poor responders give a definitely lower birth rate as compared to the hyper responders or normal responders. How do you monitor the cycle? Simple monitoring. Day 2, do a transvaginal sonography, or when you do a day 2 sonography, you look for the adnexia, look for the cyst, and that is what you would find, that absolutely everything is okay. Then serum estradiol level, I do not do it in regular practice at all. Only if it's a research study or a clinical study which I'm conducting in my patients, then I would do the estradiol level. And serum LH or urinary LH is also only in research scenario. Otherwise, only a transvaginal ultrasound is enough. So you do transvaginal ultrasound on day 2, check out for any cyst, look at the endometrial thickness, look at the adnexia, is there a hydrosalpinx, is there any fluid in the POD? All those things you should look at. Then again, repeat the scan at 6 on the 6 after 6 days. And if your leading follicle is about 10 mm, that's fine. Otherwise, step up the dose. Maximum that I have gone up to is 600. I have seen people give even 1200, but I think that's really, really not indicated at all. 450 should be enough dose. And then after 6 days, you call her back on the 8th day. Usually between 6th and 8th day, the follicle is about 14 mm and you start the antagonist. And then you give the trigger when the leading 2-3 follicles are 18 mm. So this is how I would monitor my patients for poor ovarian response. A lot of times, nearly 20% of the patients with an AMH which is less than 1 do land up with cancellations. So remember with your poor responders, even if there's 1 egg growing, you should talk to the patient, because for all you know, the second cycle may also produce 1 egg. So you need to discuss with her that we can collect one egg every time. So I use a mild stimulation protocol and collect one egg. So this would be a good way. So as I said, serial ultrasound, and then when the leading follicle is 18 mm, that's when I give the trigger. What is the trigger which we use for poor responders? Usually it is an HCG trigger, either 5,000 or 10,000. And nowadays, there are a lot of papers saying that the dual trigger works very well in poor responders. So giving an agonist as well as an HCG works really well in these patients. And over the last 2 years, I have started using a dual trigger in poor responders. So dual trigger improves the outcomes of IVF. This was published in July 2023, 84 cycles of Poseidon group, 4 patients, and 194 received dual trigger and 114 received only HCG. And you can see that the dual trigger resulted in a higher number of eggs, M2, fertilized oocyte, day 3 embryos, and top quality blastocysts. In fact, significantly higher CPR and live birth rate was obtained in the dual trigger group. So what are the trends in poor responders that we follow? We give adjuvants. So DHEA plus melatonin is the combination that I give in all my patients, and I give it till they get pregnant. A lot of times, even during the FET cycles, I continue this adjuvant because I feel that the androgens are required even for the endometrium. Then the other adjuvants that I use are coenzyme Q, then the arginine, then nitric oxide donors, which is arginine. And I also use, a multivitamin, see that your vitamin D is adequate. Those are the things which are added to poor responders. Then antagonist protocol, I've already explained. Mild protocol, I've already explained. Dual stimulation is something that I have done in a few patients. So what happened a couple of years ago is Beerwald and Pearson. These are 2 guys who completely changed our knowledge of physiology. In what were we taught in our medical college? I think I did it 30 years ago. I was taught 81, my God. So I was taught that 81 I took admission. Yeah, that's when the first physiology class happened. So when the menstrual period, there's a follicular phase in which there's one follicular wave, and then there's ovulation, and then the luteal phase, and then there's a menstrual period if you don't conceive. But Beerwald and Pearson said that every woman has multiple waves, follicular waves. So normally people have 2 follicular waves, and 30% of the women have 3 follicular waves. So there came the whole change of concept that you can start stimulation anytime. And especially because there was a change in thought process that cancer patients were surviving cancer and they were coming to us for fertility. They wanted their children and they wanted their own eggs, which were completely damaged because of chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And so these girls needed stimulation before they took the therapy. And because of the time frame, we could not wait for the next period. So random stimulation, that means anytime you can start, was started based on this principle given by Beerwald and Pearson. And from there came the dual stimulation, that in poor responders, when you do stimulation, you use a HCG trigger. And once the HCG trigger is given, you give a washout period of 4 days, and then you start stimulating her again. Start giving letrozole with gonadotropins again. And then you can use the agonist trigger or a dual trigger or whatever. You cannot use the agonist trigger first. You use the agonist trigger, not the HCG trigger, because the agonist trigger has a shorter half-life. HCG remains for a longer time. So agonist will give the natural LH surge. So that's why use an agonist trigger and a dual. So during the follicular phase, you do one stimulation. During the luteal phase, you do the second stimulation. It's a replica. And you do 2 pickups in 1 month for poor responders, and you get double the amount of eggs in 1 month. So that is something that was the Shanghai protocol, the Tokyo protocol, which was actually promoted, and it is being used in a lot of centers. I did dabble with it for some time, but I'm not used it so much now recently. Before COVID, I was using it a lot. Then, of course, addition of growth hormone, you add 4 international units to 8 international units of growth hormone from day 2. Some protocols are even before you give for whole 1 month, 4 international units, and you get good results. And the final thing that I feel in poor ovarian responders is frozen embryo transfer, because you can do embryo pooling with it. So even if you get 1, 2 embryos, I like to pool my embryos together. I've had a lot of 40+ patients pregnant with their own gametes, because we collect one egg. And remember this, when you keep doing multiple cycles one after the other, in the first cycle you get 1 embryo, second cycle 1 embryo, third, fourth, fifth give you actually 4, 5 embryos. So I think the receptors in your ovary get, they get sensitized by the gonadotropins, by your DHEA. All this acts and you get better number of embryos. So I think these are some of the things that I feel should be encouraged. And of course, the categories, how to categorize them, use the USG, the blood test, and we don't do the CC challenge test anymore. But this is the dose of gonadotropins that I use. Look at the last column, that under 30 years, 225 international units is fine. 30 to 35, I use a 300 international units. But practically, this is for IUI, which Kundan is going to talk about, but practically for IVF, what I use is 300 to 450 only, all across the board, whatever age my patient is. Unless the AFC is showing, sometimes AMH and AFC don't match. So then you have to titrate your dose. And this was a beautiful chart given by the Delphi consensus, where low responders, what is recommended is GnRH antagonist or GnRH agonist protocol. Both work equally good. And as I said, 150 to 300, I personally prefer the 300. Ultrasound monitoring for follicular size number. Yeah, I forgot to tell you, look at the endometrial thickness also. It's very, very important when you're doing the sonographies, because sometimes when you're doing FETs and the endometrium doesn't grow, you can go back to your stimulation protocol and see if the endometrium is gone, they respond better to a stimulated cycle FET. So that way you can change it. Then in the if low responder, you have obtained an ovarian response, then you can give HCG or you can give a dual trigger. And if you have not obtained a response, you cancel the cycle. And the luteal support has to be progesterone, and that is how it goes. So I think that's all that I would have to say about poor responders. when love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece. And that is what we are all working for. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandita, for such a short, sweet, and crisp talk, yet so informative and so useful. I know your talk was, I think, especially addressed for the infertility specialist, but at the same time, general gynecologists also who are in clinical practice can have so many points to gather from your talk, because initially, even poor responders come to a normal gynecologist and he is the one who recognizes this group of patients. So I think all the points were very useful to all the people who have logged in for this.
Amita?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it was a
So
pleasure.
it was really a very apt and wonderful talk, Dr. I always love hearing you. It was a wonderful talk and very informative talk. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Nandita ma'am, for your brilliant talk. Really, you made it so simpler that everyone can understand it very well.
And Nandita, one question I had, how do you use testosterone in your practice in this patient?
The Cernos gel which we have, we used to cut it into 4 parts, and I used to use one every day. That is the dose.
The whole tube has to be separated in 4 parts.
No, it used to come as a patch before, but now you can actually get a spatula now with the andro gel, and you can apply that. One application. Yeah, that's
okay. Okay, and you very nicely talked about the dual trigger, which is very much in vogue now for poor responders. And regarding the supplements, also I am impressed that you are using the supplements, and you must have been very much convinced with those products using along with the other, I mean, more approach-based or scientific management of infertility patients, because you want to help them in any way.
Yeah, there's nothing else we can offer them.
Random stimulation is also very important, because sometimes the husbands come from abroad for very short time. So it is not only the oncology patients, there are some people who have several social problems. Then also I think it is going to be very useful. And embryo pooling is of course very important for poor responders. So it was a wonderful talk. And I think we heard it from a very experienced person who is doing it every day and night. So I invite questions. I think questions will be answered in the end of the meeting. So
No, madam. Madam has, I request Dr. Nibha Mohan to take question answer session for this lecture. Okay.
Okay. So if there, I don't think Nandita will be
Nandita madam has some engagement, some outside.
Okay.
Mera jamai aa raha hai, baba.
Thank you, Amita.
So if there is any question from the audience, I think you should go ahead with
questions,
that.
Nandita ma'am, in the other group. This is just for the faculty group. The other group, they have few basic questions. They want to know whether do you do the day 2 scan in every cycle or on the in the first cycle only?
Every cycle do the day 2 scan, please.
Day 2 cycle.
Especially when you're stimulating them, there's a cyst formation is very high in these poor responders, PCOS and all.
Okay, so you have to check every cycle. Thank you for that. And once you start gonadotropin, so you are giving like every day. So how long to give gonadotropin till if suppose she's asking if I'm not getting good follicle till 15, day 15. So how long to give the gonadotropins?
No. In poor responders, I normally give it for 8 days. If there's no response, I cancel the cycle.
Cancel the cycle. Good. Okay. And if in repeated cycles she's getting good follicles and endometrium is not that good, then what to do?
That's a whole new lecture on thin endometrium.
She's asking sometimes someone of your group has have advised that even if the endometrium is thin and repeatedly you are getting good follicles, then you can go ahead with the IUI and all. So what's your take in that situation?
The endometrium should be beyond 7 mm at least.
Beyond 7, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And
okay. So I thank you, Dr. Nibha Mohan, Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Chairpersons, Pramila Modi, madam, and Anita Singh, madam, for making this session so wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And to conduct the next session, May I request Dr. Smriti Spur to kindly take over the session.
Thank you, madam.
Gynecologist, a very young budding gynecologist of Patna, and we are her auntie, as she is daughter of Vinita Singh, madam. Over to you, Smriti.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for such sweet words. A very good evening to all respected seniors. I'm in awe of the movement with such great personalities. Thank you so much, Vinita madam and Supriya madam, for giving me this first startup platform. As I begin with introducing our respected chairpersons for the second session, it is a proud privilege and a great honor to welcome our first chairperson. There is no habit you will value so much as that of working far without fatigue. Such has been the demeanor of our present president of Patna Obs and Gynae Society, Dr. Vinita Singh Madam. She is the associate professor in the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics in Nalanda Medical College Hospital, consultant at Care Hospital and IVF Center. Madam has justified her enthusiasm as Governing Council member FOXY ICOG, YTP Committee Chairperson FOXY 2017-19, has been the Joint Secretary, Clinical Secretary, Treasurer, Vice President. Several executive committee member posts of Patna Obs and Gynae Society has been held by Madam. Safe Motherhood Committee, Quiz Committee, Patna Obstetric Committee, FOXY member post, Business Secretary, the Patna Journal of Medicine, East Zone Coordinator, MTP Committee, FOXY. Madam has also held several conferences and workshops, like Organizing Secretary of NICON 2019, was the Organizing Secretary BoxCon 2016, invited faculty in workshop FIGO 2018, participated in FIGO 2015, invited faculty in the multiple national and local conferences, has edited the FOXY ICOG campus on PCOD, with various accolades to Madam's honor, like the MG Mishra Award in 2004 and the George Mohani Award in 2012. I welcome you, Madam. The second chairperson, again, there were nowhere to go, so he went everywhere. I welcome Dr. Priyankur Roy. Sir is the Assistant Professor, Lord Buddha Kosi Medical College and Hospital, Saharsa, Consultant in Fertility and Gynae Endoscopy, Roy's Clinic and Nova IVF Siliguri, is the Joint Secretary, Siliguri Obs and Gynae Society, Joint Secretary, IMA Siliguri Chapter, Vice President, WETOG, FIGO, Joint Secretary, Gestosis, National Coordinator, Public Awareness Committee, FOXY, was the past Coordinator, Perinatology Committee, Infertility and Endocrinology Committee, FOXY Organizing Secretary, East Zone Yuva FOXY 2020, Organizing Secretary in International WETOG Conference 2021, has published several articles, authored more than 20 chapters, has been the peer reviewer of various journals and presented more than 50 articles in several conferences, is the recipient of the gold medal in the MS University Examination 2016, FOXY Korean Award, FOXY Future Award 2017, Shah S. Ratnam Young Gynecologist Award 2019, FOXY Dr. Kamini Roy Orator Award in 2020, FOXY Dr. Shanti Yadav Award again in Infertility in 2020, is the recipient of FOXY Sun Traveling Fellowship 2020, FOXY Dr. Nimish R. Shelat Research Award 2020, FOXY Dr. Kumut Tamaskar Research Award in 2021. I welcome both the respected chairpersons. I would also request Madam Dr. Vinita Singh to introduce our speaker for the session, Dr. Kundan Engel.
Thank you, Smriti, for your such a nice and wonderful words. I take pleasure to introduce Dr. Kundan Engel. He is known by everyone for his enthusiasm, for his academic acumen, and is so active. And his hospitality is known by everyone. So, Dr. Kundan Engel, he is chairperson, Infertility Committee, FOXY 2020-23. He has been awarded for Best Research Paper in ISAR 2019, second Best Research Paper ISAR 2018, and third Best Research Paper FOXY 2019. Director, Nirbiti Clinic, Center for Assisted Reproduction and Endoscopy, Pune. He is General Secretary, POGS 2019-20, Founder, Treasurer, Maharashtra Chapter ISAR 2011-2014, Founder, Member of Pune Association of Gynec Endoscopy Surgeons, presented research paper at ASRM 2020 on prospective RCT of estradiol valerate as estradiol hemihydratin FET, Director Moses Basket ART Bank, Pune, and presented first-time research at 6th COGI World Congress at Vietnam on use of GCSF subcutaneously for thin endometrium. So he will be speaking on ovulation induction in IUI. So Dr. Priyankar, can you introduce the topic?
Yes, ma'am. Sure. So thank you so much to the Patna Society for giving me an opportunity. It's like homecoming whenever we talk about the Patna Society, and I would like to thank Vinita ma'am, Supriya ma'am for the opportunity, and of course our chief guest and guest of honor Kamini ma'am and Basa Mukherjee sir. So coming to this topic on ovulation induction in IUI, Dr. Kundan, I have heard this talk. I heard him talk about this topic before, and he is an excellent speaker on this topic because he does absolute justice to it. So IUI, we all know that in our day-to-day practice, and especially in Bengal, Bihar, if we directly tell a patient that we might require IVF, the patient will seriously get frightened and get scared about the cost factors, etc. of that is involved as well. So IUI is a topic that is nowadays, that is most of the times now in the ovulation induction in IUI is most of the times done by gynecologists in their clinics as well. And even most of the patients by ovulation induction itself conceives. If not, at least the ovulation induction is done, and then the patient is probably sent to the fertility specialist for the IUI. So it's a very important topic and something that we nowadays practice in our day-to-day clinical scenarios. So I would request Dr. Kundan to kindly talk on this topic, ovulation induction in IUI.
Thank you very much. Good evening once again to all of you. And ladies and gentlemen, my today's topic is ovulation induction in IUI. Thank you, Dr. Vinita, for those kind words of introduction, and Priyankur, thank you so much for introducing that topic. Friends, my task is today to discuss with you about ovulation induction in IUI. Now, if you look at my slide, my first topic, which is written in green signal, I always like to put this topic into green color, because I always feel that, you know, a couple of decades back, we were always worried that IUI will not yield so much good results. But now, after last 2 decades, whatever development has happened, I feel now we can say to our patient that it is a established result-giving treatment, because now with many things we can get maximum pregnancy rates into IUI and help our patient to get the pregnancy. Now, this is what happens when we do a repeated IUI cycles. It's very frustrating thing for the couples that when you try one cycle, it fails. When you try for second cycle, it fails. When you try for third cycle, it again fails. And once it is like 3 cycles failed, it's a big frustration. So I think that's something which is regularly happens with repeated IUI cycles. And then we always talk about that, okay, I have 3 cycle limitations. So how can I get my pregnancy as early as possible? Maybe in the first or second or third cycle. So there are many levels where we understand that these factors, they actually affect the success. Means we concentrate on these things, and it will definitely help us to give a pregnancy as early as possible, like in 3 cycles. Now, one is the causes of infertility. We have to choose the patient, not only by cause, but even by the age. We have to look at the duration of infertility. We have to look at number of treatment cycle already undergone, and look at the semen quality. These are very important prerequisites when you select the patients. Now, when you do a treatment called ovulation induction and IUI, number of follicles at the time of insemination, I think this is something which I will stress upon in today's talk, because that's what is the ovulation induction is for, that how many dominant follicles which are available at the time of, say, SCG trigger, not at insemination, but at the time of SCG trigger, because I know that these follicles, these dominant follicles are going to give me a mature meiosis II oocyte, and one of them might give me a pregnancy in the same cycle. And of course, the procedure, which is IUI technique, which is not part of the discussion today for this topic. Now, before we start, I think I'd like to always go back to physiology, because this graph, we have to keep it in mind. Remember, the second and the third day, especially it starts from first day, in fact, that we have a recruitment phase where there is something called as a window. This window starts with when the FSH increases and goes beyond this dotted line, which is known as a threshold. Now, once the FSH goes beyond the threshold, then the follicles get selected. Always, even in natural cycle, we have at least 2 to 3 dominant follicles, which are, sorry, 2 to 3 antral follicles get selected to develop for dominance. But what happens is that this FSH goes down because of increasing estrogen level, and finally the FSH goes below this threshold. Now, the moment this FSH goes below this threshold, remember those other 2 or 3 follicles which are on the smaller side, they are going to go into atrophy, and that's why we have one single dominant follicle in a natural cycle. Now, what happened in a stimulated cycle, when we are using a kind of a drug like letrozole, so what happened is that the FSH level is increased. So what we give it for 5 days, so what happens after 5 days, again increasing estrogen levels is going to decrease the FSH levels, and again we get the similar picture with letrozole, that a single monofollicular growth with letrozole. But this is what we need to understand, that when we want more number of follicles at the time of trigger, that is SCG injection, we need to widen this FSH window. We should not allow this FSH to fall down below the threshold. If we keep this FSH above the threshold line, we will not have this atrophy of other small follicles, and till they come into dominance, and then we have 2 or 3 dominant follicles for the cycle. Now remember why it is so important for ovulation induction, because remember, each follicle will not give you every time say competent oocyte which will give rise to blastocyst and ultimately pregnancy. And that's what we have to understand, that naturally in gametogenesis and studies in the literature, remember, if we have 3 to 4 gametes, then we have one gamete which can give rise to competent blastocyst and pregnancy. So if I target 3 cycles, and if these 3 cycles do not have that competent oocyte, we will fail. But if we have at least 1 or 2 follicles which are going to give us competent oocyte in these 3 attempts, we are going to have a much better chances of pregnancy. So instead of aiming for first single follicle, which we used to follow really a decade ago, that always a PCO patients increase only 1 single dominant follicle, it will improve the chances of pregnancy. But that principle has completely changed now, and because after realizing that each follicle do not give us a competent oocyte, and that's why nowadays whenever it comes to ovulation induction, we always aim for, as a RT consultant, we will always aim for at least 2 to 3 dominant follicles. And the reason is very simple. If I target 3 cycles and each cycle I develop 2 to 3 dominant follicles, we are going to have, say, in 3 cycles at least 8 to 9 follicles. Now, according to the normal incidence of competent oocyte, if you look at 8 to 9 oocytes in 3 cycles, I am looking at somewhere close to 2 oocytes, 2 follicles, which will give me a competent oocyte. So I improve ultimately her chances of pregnancy in a shortest time, that is either in the first cycle, either in the second cycle, either in the third cycle. Now, let me tell you, after the experience of this controlled ovarian hyperstimulation, we used to always worry about multiple pregnancy, but that doesn't happen. If you develop 2 to 3 dominant follicles, then the chances are not so great, or not so significantly high. So we need not worry about multiple pregnancy, that the incidence is going to increase 3 to 4 fold. No, it's not going to happen. But we are going to increase at least 2.5 times pregnancy rate in these kind of treatments. And that's why this physiology has to be important. Now we'll again come back to this physiology once we discuss about the protocol. So just to summarize, we want adequate response. We don't want hyper response. We don't want no response. So we'll have to just identify the threshold where we will have at least 2 to 3 dominant follicles. Now, what to look for when starting stimulation? I think these are very important points when you plan a cycle. So look at the present cycle antral follicular count. And I say specifically present cycle when you start. So of course, antral follicular count is going to give you the ovarian reserve. But when you do it in the current cycle, it's going to help you to predict the response of the ovary. So day 2 antral follicular count in the present cycle. Then of course the AMH done recently is going to help you to identify poor responders, as Dr. Nandita has given clear idea. Generally poor responders, if you put them on an IUI treatment, they are already going to have a poor chances of pregnancy. With IUI, they have more poor chances of pregnancy. Ideally, poor responders who are AMH below 1.1, don't put them on IUI, put them on the IVF. So AMH for identifying the and selection of the proper patient. Of course, the age, please below 35 only, or maximum 38, not beyond 38. IUI should be advised. Now, obesity is important point, because obesity person or obese person is always going to face a challenge. What we are doing, what the treatment for what we are doing it, that is, I want follicle, but that exactly this obese patient is not going to respond, or probably if she's a PCO obese, she will more likely to land into luteinized unruptured follicle, or responds very poorly, needs more duration of stimulation, needs more number of gonadotropins, or even stimulation days. So obesity is something which always pulls our leg while doing ovarian stimulation. So keep it in mind. Then previous response to stimulation, that is something like a guide for us. It's like a textbook. So look at those previous cycle, how she has responded, so that you can modify and don't do the same thing where she landed in a no follicular growth. Then history of hyperstimulation is important. Yes, because we do get such patient who even with a small dose, they will show hyperstimulation. So if it is documented into previous cycle, it is definitely going to help us for a milder stimulation protocol for them. Now, important steps are very simple in if it comes to IU or IVF of stimulation protocol, and those are ovarian stimulation, which we need a required number of follicles at the same time. Means for IUI, I said 2 to 3 dominant follicles. For IVF, we need little more follicles, minimum 8 to 15. Then second part is down regulation, which we compulsorily do it in IVF, but in IUI we don't do it, and that is to prevent LS surge. And let me tell you, one of the most common reason for failure in IUI treatments is this, and I always put it into important steps of IUI. Then third is the ovulation trigger, of course, which converts from meiosis 1 to meiosis 2 oocyte, and it's ready for the fertilization. Now, let's talk about pre-treatment, and then we talk about protocols. So remember, any patient who's got a reverse FSH-LH ratio, even if it is thin or obese, I think giving one cycle or minimum 1 or maximum 2 cycles of oral contraceptive pills going to downregulate her pituitary, going to lower that LH in her circulatory levels in a circulation, and so that when we start stimulation, her ovary responds better to our ovulation induction protocol. Now, regarding the drugs, it has been very clearly proven. This was a randomized trial in 2017. Letrozole compared with clomiphene, and one important point which I will always like to tell you is that hyperstimulation risk is more with clomiphene, which is 0% in letrozole, and of course the negative impact on the endometrial growth. I think letrozole should be the first choice when it comes to unovulatory patients. Probably for ovulatory patients, I will not say or the same thing there. Even clomiphene can be a good option, equivalent to letrozole. But in unovulatory patients, especially hyper-responders, PCO patient, letrozole has to be first choice. Now it has been documented that clomiphene, if you add with metformin for PCO patient, it gives a highest result. So letrozole was compared against this combination, but letrozole had proven to be having a higher rate of ovulation, more dominant follicles, better endometrial thickness, and higher clinical pregnancy rate. So remember, letrozole should be the first choice. Again, for these particular patients, I always put it in this way, that any PCO patients, give them insulin sensitizers irrespective of their insulin sensitizer, insulin resistant test. Now you do a GTT for these patients just to diagnose those PCO patients who are actually having diabetes, but your GTT report is going to help you to identify patients who actually really need a metformin for their ovulation induction protocol. And remember, a pre-treatment is very important by these guidelines of ASRM, that we not like a 3 months, but I'll recommend for at least 2 months prior to your ovulation induction. Wait, give for 2 months and then start ovulation induction. Then we will have a better response. We see a lot of patients who do not receive metformin. They do land up in luteinized unruptured follicle because their insulin resistance is present, not diagnosed, and is not corrected. And that's why they landed in a luteinized unruptured follicle. So when you see a cycle of PCO patient having LUF, please, even your GTT is normal, go ahead and give metformin and it will work better. When you start a cycle on second day, they do a 100% compulsory day 2 transvaginal scan. It is must, because you want to detect any retention functional cyst. you want to do an antral follicular count to decide the dose of gonadotropins. If the patient complains of only spotting, check the endometrial thickness. If the thickness is if the endometrium is thick, then wait for a proper withdrawal. That's not a correct day. If it is thin, then you can start the stimulation. Important that counsel couple about all the visits, what they have to do it during that cycle. Counsel them about importance and days of sexual abstinence, so that on the day of IUI, we want a good count, and counsel expenses involved. So this is important day to scan, and this is how you should look at the antral follicular count. I hope you see my video well, but these are the bigger 3 to 7 millimeter follicles are the one which are important. And if you have a follicle which is 8 to 10 millimeter, remember that follicle is going to grow faster and you're going to reach 18 millimeter in that cycle. So these larger follicles are something which are going to respond to your stimulation protocol. So sometimes be careful if you have too many follicles which are 8 to 10 millimeter, that's the patient who will hyperstimulate even with the lowest dose of gonadotropin. So remember, identify those patients and start with a lower dose. And when next job is, suppose you see on the second day some larger follicle, if it is more than 15 millimeter, then check the estrogen levels. If they are high, it looks like a functional cyst, don't start the treatment. If it is a low or below normal estrogen levels, but the follicle is present, it's a non-functional cyst, and you can start the cycle. Now, assess ovarian reserve for a simple reason that the protocol which we'll be discussing which I am going to recommend today is where we start gonadotropins to decide the dose of gonadotropins, like antral follicular per ovary. Now, I am talking about per ovary. If it is 8 to 10, which is called normoresponder, you can safely start either 50 IU of recombinant FSH or 75 IU to 150 IU of HMG. Now, when you have a more than 12 follicles, which is like a hyper responder, go with a lower dose, that is 37.5 or 75 IU of HMG. And if you have an antral follicular count less than 5, which is a poor responder, and still you want to do because she's young probably, you go with a higher dose of 100 IU of recombinant FSH or start with 150 IU of HMG. So this day 4 or day 7, what exactly it is, I will be talking about during protocols. Now, when it comes to gonadotropin cycle, I always feel that the HMG has proven, and to back this evidence, we have Megaset HR trial, where it clearly says that incidence of OHSS is very high with recombinant FSH than HMG, and early pregnancy loss, even it is higher with recombinant FSH than HMG, without compromising ongoing pregnancy rate. So that's why it is very important that HMG should be our first choice whenever it comes to ovulation induction in IUI, because it has proven non-inferior than a recombinant FSH in achieving the pregnancy with a safety profile. Now, these are the different protocols, but I have made it simplified by diagram, where we start giving letrozole 2.5 milligram from day 2 to day 6, and we start monitoring follicular growth from 7th day without further giving any drug. Wait till the follicle is 18 millimeter, give a trigger, and maybe after 40 hours do one single IUI and give progesterone. This is one protocol. Then here typically you will get a single follicular growth. Now, when we want we don't want at all any premature research, then this protocol, which was couple of 1 decade back we used to follow, and that was you downregulate with leuprolide before she gets her menses for the treatment cycle, and then you start stimulation with only gonadotropins, and that too also low dose. Then every 7 days you step up. But here in this protocol, which is not popular or nobody uses, because the simple reason is that it needs lots of injection, it's an expensive cycle, and the pregnancy rates are not so great. It's not significantly growing so well. Now, this protocol is something which is, I think most of us are following, and that is when you give letrozole from day 2 to day 6, day 7 you add HMG, either you start with 75 IU or 150 IU, and you give it daily till the follicle becomes 18 millimeter. Typically in this protocol, because you are adding gonadotropins on 7th day, you are keeping that FSH levels in the circulatory beyond threshold. So you have 2 or couple of follicles which are in the dominance, and typically this gives 1 or 2 dominant follicles, and rest of the treatment is same. But the one which I'm recommending is that you give, if it is a PCO patient, you give a 1 cycle of OC pills, followed by you give letrozole only for 2 days, and fourth day you introduce gonadotropins, because here we, especially this protocol is specifically for PCOS patient, because these patients do have a low FSH and a high LH, which causes a slower follicular growth. And here we want to push that FSH beyond threshold, maintain it above threshold, so that we do get 2 to 3 follicles. So remember, those patients who's got a FSH like 5 to 7, but the LH is 16, 17, 20, typically they will even not respond to this protocol. They need a 2 or 3 cycles sufficient down regulation, and then with this protocol they will respond. Otherwise, those who's got a 1:2 kind of ratio, they will respond with this protocol nicely, with the aim of giving 2 to 3 dominant follicles, or sometimes even 4, but which is okay. Here, the only reason why letrozole on second, third day is that we can even go for pure gonadotropin. But I think that 2 days of letrozole is going to reduce total number of duration of gonadotropin used, and that's why my experience says that it just needs average 10 to 11 days maximum, the follicles are ready, not even 14 to 15 days. So this protocol is something I recommend. And not only that when you are monitoring a follicle, if the follicles are reaching 13 to 14 millimeter, check the LH. And if the LH is between 5 to 10, then I recommend give antagonist, because we need to prevent LH surge, which is high chances that it will happen for next 2 days, that when the follicle grows from 14 to 18. I'll just take another 2 to 3 minutes. Day 7 scan is very important, because here we want to know whether it is under response or expected response or a hyper response. So if it is an under response, here at this day, you check for the LH levels, because typically when you don't see a follicle going beyond 10 millimeter at 7th day, after you give 2 days and 3 days gonadotropins, then typically this patient is going to have a high LH. Check the LH. You can add antagonists at this stage, where then only these follicles are going to grow. Otherwise, this will end up in a no follicular growth. If it is an expected response, you continue the same dose. But if it is a hyper response, you can quickly go down from 50% of your stimulation dose, and you are mimicking the physiology where you are putting the FSH below the threshold, and probably few follicles are going to go into atresia and will now prevent the hyper response, which we don't want. Now, serial scans are very important, because first of all, this antagonist use when typically the premature LH surge chances are higher when the follicles are growing more than 14 millimeter. Now I am talking about follicles, not follicle. The premature LH surge chances are higher when we have 2 or 3, 4 dominant follicles. So the LH surge chances are higher in these cycles. So you want to know the day when the follicles are reaching 14 millimeter. And that's why these serial scans are important. And at the same time, you are giving daily gonadotropins. So expected follicular growth is at least 1.5 to 2 millimeter per day. So you want to know whether I need to step up or continue the same dose for their growth. Now, while monitoring, important points are measure the follicle. Now look at these 3 measurements. Now, when I see such follicle, I freeze the image. First, what I do is I take a longitudinal largest diameter first. Second has to be the largest perpendicular diameter. And if you want to be more accurate, then you can go tangential. But I will tell you that only these 2 measurements are sufficient enough to assess correctly and accurately. Tell your radiologist, if you're not doing the scan, that I want these kind of reports. So when you look at the different sizes of the follicles, but the rule is very important. You take a largest diameter first, take a perpendicular largest diameter of the follicle and in the opposite direction. So look at those different follicles, but your measurement has to be like this, and that will give you a correct. And of course, the follicle has to be in the largest volume into your frame of ultrasound, and then these 2 measurements are going to help you. Now, please measure all the follicles. They are important. They have to be as circular as possible at the center of the image, and 2 to 3 dimensions are important. Now, premature LH surge is something which I want to make you understand, that remember, the progestinization of progesterone production happens when the LH goes beyond 10 MIU. So what is LH surge? LH surge is when you have a LH beyond 10, and because of that surge, the circulatory progesterone levels have gone beyond 2 nanogram. Now here in this scenario, when you have progesterone more than 2, the damage is already done. The endometrium has gone into advanced stage. The prognosis of the cycle success is going to be poor. So remember what I mentioned, that when you check the LH levels on the follicle on the day when the follicle is 14, even if you have LH 12 and you check the progesterone level as early as possible and the progesterone is below 1, you can still save the cycle by giving antagonist, and still there won't be any advancement of endometrium. This is our experience long time back, 7 years back, when we did this study, that when the serum LH is beyond 10, even if you give antagonist, then the pregnancy rate falls to 11.8%. If you have a patient whose LH is beyond 4 and when the follicle is 14, you have added antagonist, look at the pregnancy rate per cycle, which goes to 36%, which is I will say significantly higher than the 1B group, where the LH is less than 5, no antagonist was used, that gives you 27% pregnancy rate. So remember that LH between 5 to 10 is something which we need to monitor, and this meta-analysis says that using GnRH antagonist in IUI significantly increase the clinical pregnancy rate and decrease the pregnancy loss rate. That's an important point because of endometrial advancement. Now, ovulation trigger is something very important, that remember, this study throws a light clearly that if you give SCG when the follicle is 18 to 19 millimeter, then you have a 90% chance that that follicle will give you mature oocytes. Now, I do understand that we have a Doppler which will help us to identify, but I always recommend that Doppler will give you the quality of the follicle, whether it will give me competent oocyte or no, rather than Doppler helping you to decide the day of SCG. Because many meetings I have realized that suppose Doppler reports are not good, you don't give a trigger and wait till the follicle even goes 21, 22. Remember, that is going to give a poor results. So ovulation trigger is very important, but whether to give recombinant or urinary SCG, I think no conclusive evidence till today. The only advantage of recombinant is that consistency in a batch to batch. There is no batch to batch variability, and that's why I prefer recombinant, but there is no inhibition in using urinary SCG also. So after 36 hours before rupture, normally we do see a thin hypoechoic cream surrounding the follicle, and sometimes cumulative-like shadow may be seen. And 6 to 8 hours before rupture, a flimsy irregular line seen inside the follicle parallel to the wall, suggestive of that impending ovulation. So these are the pictures how you can say that yes, there is a evidence of ovulation. First of all, many times dominant follicle has disappeared. Either it has decreased in the size, showing the irregular contour. You definitely see a fluid in the pouch of Douglas. Intrafollicular echoes suggesting a hemorrhagic corpus luteum and loss of layering of the endometrium. And this is how you will see on the day of ovulation. Look at those echoes in the follicle. The follicle is irregular. It has already collapsed. And if you look at the pouch of Douglas, then you will see a lot of fluid into POD after the ovulation. And that's the important sign. You can see here a little streak of fluid in the pouch of Douglas. But definitely, if you look at those dominant follicles showing those echoes, so already they have ovulated, and that's a sign of ovulation. Now, as I said, Doppler, they definitely help you to find out whether this follicle is going to give you a competent oocyte. So generally, if you take the PSV, that is peak systolic velocity of the arterial signals in perifollicular area, and if it is PSV is more than 10 centimeters second, it is a good follicle and it can yield. Now remember, when you are planning IUI, always do IUI in an ovulation induction cycles than a natural ovulation cycles, because there is a significant increase in the pregnancy rate, that is 23 versus 11 when you compare ovulation induction cycle with a natural cycle. And remember, first 3 cycles are important. If she doesn't give pregnancy in 3 cycles, instead of you have done the expected responses, 4th cycle, don't do it. Stop, reevaluate all the factors again, and think of whether I should send it for IVF or check other factors which are failing us by hysterolaparoscopy. But remember, third cycle cutoff, because pregnancy rate falls drastically after the fourth cycle. So last slide, prevention of OHSS. You can definitely, if you suspect ovarian hyperstimulation, don't give SCG. That's the first thing we have to understand. Do not give SCG. Okay. Or as I said, if you come across that prediction of OHSS in the early follicular phase, step down protocol of gonadotropins. If you are giving 150, reduce it to 75. And if GnRH antagonist, injection GnRH antagonist to prevent endogenous LH surge, so that she don't have a multiple follicular ovulation and multiple pregnancy. So give antagonist to such patients to suppress her own premature LH surge. Ask couple to have a sexual abstinence. You can use GnRH agonist as an ovulation trigger, but remember, it can prevent OHSS, but it cannot prevent the multiple pregnancy. Then if you have happened to given that you only suspect mild OHSS, if SCG is given, then you give cabergoline 0.5 milligram daily for 7 days after the day of ovulation, and it will not allow any fluid collection into the abdomen. If GnRH agonist as a trigger is bigger and given, and you suspect mild ovarian hyperstimulation, but you want to go ahead with IUI, give injection SCG 1500 IU after 36 hours from the GnRH agonist trigger, which will save the early luteal phase, which may have a defect. Or as I said, if you suspect too much, then just abandon the cycle. Don't do anything is the best strategy. So with this, I end my presentation. I tried to give you those important steps of ovulation induction, protocols we discussed, what gonadotropins we should follow, and very important points while monitoring, not only monitoring, but timings and the number of cycles and selection of patient. I thank you everybody for the patient hearing. I'm very sorry I've extended 10 minutes. I'm very sorry, but thank you so much for that extra timing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kundan. It was really indeed a very good talk, and you extended 10 minutes. We never felt that, time has been extended. So it was a very wonderful and a clear message you have given to us, everyone, that 3 cycle of IUI with good protocol. And if she is not conceiving, then reevaluate. This is very good message you have given to us. And how to prevent hyperstimulation, that was also very important. So it was a very good talk. So Dr. Priyanku, you want to say something?
Yeah, ma'am. Just wanted to thank Dr. Kundan for that wonderful talk. So after he had taken over as the Infertility Committee Chair, his first workshop he had done in Siliguri, and like being closely associated with Dr. Kundan for so long, learned so much from him. And I'm sure everyone present here will benefit from the talk that he has given today. Thank you, Dr. Kundan.
And thank you, Vinita Madam, those kind words of encouragement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kundan sir. Thank you, respected chairpersons. Thank you, sir, for imparting your knowledge and adding points of value in our current practice. Moving ahead, I now request Madam Dr. Niba Mohan to take over, to take us further with the question answer segment. Madam, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Smriti. Very excellent talk, I must say, sir. I heard so many talks of ovulation induction for IUI, but I must say this was super. It was really, you made everything so simple and so clear and so crisp. Just few questions from the other group. Once you start HMG, how frequently monitoring should be done?
Okay, I normally what I do is second day I give them instruction for 5 days. So day 2, day 3 letrozole, 4, 5, 6 gonadotropins, and 7th day of menses I call her back, and then I do a scan, decide again whether I have to continue the same dose or I have to step up. Then I call her after 48 hours, that is day 9 of menses. Then again I look at generally by day 9 their follicles has to be in the range of, with this continuous daily, they have to be in the range of 13, 14, 15 millimeter, where we check the LH, and depending on follicle size, suppose if the follicles are 13, 14 or even 15, you can safely call after 48 hours. So that will be 11th day of the cycle. But if the follicles are 16, 17 or even 17.5, you want to take one more day, call very next day. So by 9th, 10th or maximum 11th day, her follicle gets ready. Usually if you are giving daily HMG and gonadotropin stimulation. So that's how I call her. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And one more question is there. Once you give the trigger, so do you do again the scan before IUI or you just do IUI?
No, I generally don't do at the, I do it just before IUI, but not at the semen collection. So irrespective of ovulation. Now, suppose I have given a trigger at 4 o'clock today evening. I call them at 10 o'clock day after tomorrow. So that has already 42 hours have already crossed. I expect that she has to ovulate that day morning. So she has already ovulated because the ovulation is going to happen between 36 hours to 42 hours. And I want her to ovulate before she comes for IUI. And say 10:15, we ask them to collect the semen. Before taking her actual IUI procedure, we do the scan and actual document that she has ovulated or not ovulated. Now, suppose she has not ovulated, it's all right because you have done one scan doesn't mean that she won't ovulate that day. You check the follicles which are 18, 19, how much they have expanded, because a follicle which is 18 millimeter, 19 millimeter, you have given trigger, you want expansion of the intrafollicular cells, cumulus cells and all those things. So follicle has to go beyond 25, 26 millimeter to ovulate. Now, suppose your dominant follicle is only 21, 22 millimeter, it has not expanded so much, and probably it's a defective follicle, probably something wrong with SCG or even the insulin resistance and all those problems. In that case, I still do IUI. I give them 50% of the trigger dose, that is 5,000 IUI I'll give. I'll call them again 36 hours later. If she has ovulated by that time, it's worthwhile doing a second IUI at that time. Otherwise, single IUI is sufficient enough if you have done a correctly at peri-ovulatory time.
Thank you so much, sir. Rest of the things you have made so clear that I think there's no other questions. So I think they'll ask you personally if you feel comfortable, they can ask you the other questions.
Sure.
So thank you for that. So over to Smriti to continue the session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, respected speaker, Dr. Kundaningale, sir, for imparting your knowledge, adding the points of value, which we all must have noted down for our current practices. It was immensely valuable, sir. Thank you so much. And I also thank our respected chairperson for the second session. Thank you, Madam Vinita Singh, Madam, and our respected Dr. Priyanku Roy, sir. As we move ahead and conclude the second session, can I now request Madam Dr. Amita Sinha? Madam, could you take us further with the sessions?
Yes. Thank you, Smriti.
Moving
ahead for the next session, which is on donor insemination. And speaker is none other than Dr. Himanshu Roy, Chairperson Infertility Committee POX and pioneer in the field of infertility in Bihar. And also, I must say that he is pride of Bihar. And to chair his session, we have two learned chairpersons. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Ranu Singh, Madam. Madam is Chairperson, MTP Committee POX. Can I have the CV of Dr. Ranu Singh? Madam is in charge, RCH, Department of OBGY, PMCH, Patna. She is appointed as a nodal officer for so many government programs at PMCH, like PPIUCD, Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Yojana, and for HIV and AIDS program. She is master trainer of IPAS, Adolescent Health, and she is also clinical mentor for IPAS Development Foundation on comprehensive abortion care. Madam is member of Executive Committee POX and chairperson of MTP Committee of Apna Patna OBGY Society. I welcome you, Dr. Ranu, Madam. Our next chairperson is young, dynamic Dr. Subhas Malya. He is from Calicut, Kerala, consultant at PVS Hospital and Baby Memorial Hospital. He is DNB guide and examiner based at Delhi. Chairperson Foxy Endoscopy Committee from 2021 to 2024. Chairperson of Medical Legal Committee of Karnataka Federation OBGY Society 2021-24. Currently, he is Secretary of Calicut Society and Kerala chapter of IAGE, Managing Committee member of IAGE, and also members of so many society. He is recipient of Foxy Mentor Mentee Award in 2019. I welcome you, Dr. Subhas. Now, I hand over the session to both the chairperson, but I request Dr. Ranu to kindly introduce and invite the speaker, Dr. Himanshu Roy. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Amita. Am I audible to you?
Madam. Yes.
Thank you, Amita, for a very nice introduction and very nice words. First of all, I thank to the organizer, especially Dr. Vinita Singh and Dr. Supriya Jaiswal for giving me this opportunity to chair this prestigious session of webinar of the session. Our third speaker is Dr. Himanshu Roy. Dr. Himanshu Roy is chairperson Infertility Committee Box. Dr. Himanshu actually does not need any introduction, but it is customary to introduce any speaker of the session. Dr. Himanshu Roy is a consultant of Srijan Fertility Clinic, Patna, first IVF baby of Bihar in 2003, born in Srijan Fertility Clinic, has published many papers and many chapters, won various Foxy prizes, running many courses in reproductive medicine of Foxy, ICOG, IFS of Amity University. His topic today is very interesting and very informative, that is donors insemination. I hand over to the... Thank
you, madam. So, should I start sharing my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Subhash Malya, Dr. Himanshu Roy, you can, Dr. Subhash Malya has joined. Kindly give your comment on the subject, sir. Dr. Subhash, can you?
No, ma'am. We will continue with the talk, ma'am, and then we'll come back in the end, ma'am, because we're already late by about half an hour. Let's proceed, ma'am. Over to you, Himanshu, sir.
Yes. Okay.
On the top, it is written slideshow. You can start there.
Yeah, I'm going to start.
Yeah, now you can.
Yeah. I hope the slides are visible.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know where to start with thanking whom, Dr. Ranu Singh for introducing me, or Dr. Subhash to letting me talk, Dr. Vinita Singh, our chairperson, who made me the Infertility Committee chairperson, our president, and Dr. Vinita Singh. And especially, I would like to greet Dr. Kamini Rao, a great teacher and mentor. I met her first in Ahmedabad almost 25 years back when I was doing my PG. And it's great for to share stage with her in any form. Dr. Basab was a good friend and typical Babu Moshai, the most gentleman that you can meet, and so knowledgeable and so yet so humble. And Dr. Kundan Ingle, who just gave a master class on the endocrinology of our reproductive system in women. I would also like to greet Dr. Nandita. I don't know whether she's still there or not. And Dr. Nibha, Dr. Amita, and Dr. Smriti for conducting this. So Dr. Supriya asked me that what will be your topic? And donor insemination is something about which very few people like to talk. I don't remember listening about donor insemination from any person. And there are very few literatures. If you go for search, then you'll get so many articles on ovulation induction and all those things, poor responders, thin endometrium, but donor insemination is not considered to be a kind of treatment. And they think कि इसमें क्या है, patient आया उसको day 12, 14, 16 को डाल दिया और हो गया. So I would just like to put more light on what is donor insemination. It is also a kind art, and how it is different from the other IUIs and the other IVF that we do in our day-to-day practice. So we know donor insemination has been quite common in our mythology. Also, there is hardly any person who has delivered or got pregnant naturally. They were all got conceived by different methods of treatment, whether it was Kauravas, whether it was Pandavas, whether it was even Ram, and any person you go into our mythology. So it's not a new thing, but it is was done in different forms. And now even you saw the movie Vicky Donor, which was so popular. So it is being done around quite commonly, and there are various methods to do. One is intracervical insemination, which was earlier Before 1995, that was the default method, intracervical or intravaginal, in which you don't have to prepare the semen, and you just put the raw semen and put it inside the vagina around the time of ovulation. And now IUI, another method of donor insemination, which is not insemination, but use of donor sperm, is also done in IVF when the patient has got blocked tubes, or there are many cycles of IUI have failed, then IVF with donor sperm is done. Home insemination and natural insemination is also some forms of insemination that is popular in Western countries, and also done here also. If you go on the web and search about donor insemination, then these are also derivatives of the IUI that we do with the donor sperm. So even in UK, if you go for the data in 2013 and 2018, you can see here that almost so many cycles, 4,642 cycles were done in 2013. And when you come to 2018, there were 5,651 cycles of donor insemination done. So there was 22% jump, despite the advent of so much technology, ICSI, TESA, and everything. Still, the demand for donor insemination has not gone off, even in the highly developed countries. It is still being done there, and the demand is increasing. Coming to our own, I can only give my data that in 2016, we did almost 2,400, which is almost half of the whole UK. So you can imagine in India how many donor inseminations must be being done. You can see that my cases did not increase by 22% with the opening of so many IVF clinics with our dear friends and with our junior colleagues coming up. So our number of cases declined. So, but this is only for one center. It is not of the whole country. If you see the whole country, the cases will certainly be going up. And in COVID time in 2020, it was almost half. But again, we are going to our 2017 levels now. So this is the scenario, that how much IUI is being done with donor sperm. This is about donor sperm. It is not about IUI with homologous semen. We have got different data about it. So what are the indications for donor insemination? I'll not go into detail of these things because most gynecologists know. I will only go and give details of the things which have changed in IUI. So the indications are azoospermia, severe oligoteratoasthenozoospermia, genetic problems in male, infections in male, especially HIV. Many males come and say that I don't want to put my wife into any risk. Though with IUI, with washed semen, there is hardly any risk, but still they will insist. Rh negative sensitized wife, ICSI failures. Also, the patients come for economic reasons also, who cannot afford IUI, IVF or ICSI. Then in Western countries and also in our country, also lesbian women, single women, recently widowed women, and patients of unexplained infertility. Also, sometimes they demand that you try donor sperm, and many a times we have seen that despite IUI failing, IVF, ICSI failing, and with donor sperm, it clicked in one cycle. But it is not something that I'm recommending. I'm just telling you my experience, and you can do this also in desperate cases. What is the reason for acceptance of donor insemination? It is a very simple procedure, inexpensive, and relatively successful procedure. What are the concerns of the patient? They are usually concerned about the profile of the donor, that whether he's working or not, which caste he is, which religion, whether the whole thing will be remain anonymous or not. What are the chances that she might get infected with some HIV or HCV kind of thing? Whether the child will be normal or not. What will be the character of the offspring? What will be can we determine by giving sperm that which it is going to be male or not? That if I'm going for donor insemination, then I want only one child and it has to be male. So they come with these demands, and you have to make them understand that it's not like that. Whether this thing will change their relationship with husband, whether they can stay with their husband or not, is rest needed or not after the treatment. Then there are moral and legal issues, whether we can get the sperm from the donors or not. Many come with their brothers and some relatives, that whether they can give the sperm for the spouse or not. Request for procedure to be classified from spouse also. Many women tell that give me sperm from outside, but don't tell. And the husband will tell that give the sperm from outside, but don't tell. But you know that it is not possible. Whether if there's something abnormal happens in child after the delivery, then again they come back that what kind of semen did you give me that I've got an abnormal child, some genetic abnormality. So donor insemination, as I told you, it was very simple. On day 12, 14, and 16, the patient used to come about peri-ovulatory days. Sample was taken from pathology lab. semen analysis was not done and simply put inseminated into the vagina. And the success rate was 1 to 2% per cycle, while the chances of infection was more than that. So, but now what is the standard method in which donor insemination is done? Some form of stimulation is given. I'll discuss this later, that what the stimulation in donor insemination. Follicular monitoring from day 10 to see the follicular size, and HCG is given on follicular maturity. Again, I will tell that Dr. Ingle had told about HCG and recombinant HCG. We did a study with 5,000 units of HCG urinary, 10,000 urinary HCG and recombinant HCG, and compared the levels of beta HCG and the pregnancy rate, whether the follicle ruptured or not. So in all the three cases, whether you use 5,000, 10,000 or recombinant HCG, the pregnancy rates were same in donor insemination cycles. The follicles, whether they had ruptured or not, was same. But interestingly, with recombinant HCG, the only thing was that the level of HCG was higher on the day of insemination, but the clinical outcome was similar. So it was just one study that we have sent for publication. It has not yet been published now, and I don't think it is going to be published also, because I was told that it has not been registered in the clinical trial, so it cannot be published. So I thought it is a good platform to share whatever my experience was with this thing. So it does not matter whether you're using recombinant HCG or urinary HCG 5,000 or 10,000, but it should be kept well preserved. It should not be exposed to heat. Frozen IUI ready sperm, which is generally used, we match the blood group of the donor with the blood groups of the wife and husband, and the sample we take out. We always do the examination of that frozen after thawing. We do the count, motility count, the count and the motility, and see if there is anything else there or not, whether there is signs of infection or pus cells, whether it has been prepared, because usually we do not prepare, it comes from outside. So we have to confirm that the sample is good, because if it is not a good sample, then it's of no use doing donor insemination, because as we take blood transfusion, then we see that what is the hemoglobin of the donor. Here also, the sample should be good. Any kind of sample is not going to work. It will decrease your pregnancy rate. Luteal support is only in indicated cases, not routinely, but nowadays this is fashion to give either defastin or progesterone in very low dose, because since we have not stimulated too much, so there is very few luteal dysfunction. But if there is history of such kind of abortion, higher age and short cycles or things like that, then you can give luteal support. And success rate per cycle with IUI with donor sperm is on average around 15% per cycle. So this you have to also know, and you have to emphasize this thing to the patient also. These are the various cryopreserved samples kept. We keep these scans with us. But now with new ART law, you know that banks have to be separated from the clinics. So it will become a relic of the past in a very few days. So what is this new law about? Why is donor insemination? We need to know about donor insemination now in a different light. With the ART Act of 2021, I'll just take a second. Yeah, with the ART Act 2021, there are few things which every clinician needs to know. Before this, all the gynecologists, and not only gynecologists, all MBBS doctors also, RMPs also, who are practicing any form of treatment, it was very common, because it is a very non-invasive procedure to do IUI in their clinics. But after the enactment of ART Act, and when the laws will come in place in 1 or 2 months, then no clinic can do IUI until they are registered with the state board or the national board if required. So it will not be easy for any regular MBBS person, so will not be able to do, because he's not qualified to even go for registration. Gynecologists also, they have to do the registration, even they are not planning to do IVF. Even they are only doing IUI, they have to get themselves registered. It is not like the criteria earlier which had come by the ICMR, which said that for IUI you don't need to register, but that thing didn't become law. The law which has been enforced since January 25 is that it can be done only in a registered ART clinic. So you will be under the purview, under the jurisdiction of the local district authority, state authority, and they will be free to come anytime, check. And there's so many things like PNDT Act, it is going to be very, very difficult to practice it like that. So this is one thing that we have to remember. Second thing, again, very funny, has come that sperm donor can donate sperm to only one couple in his lifetime. So earlier, the donor who usually was a student, he used to give samples every week, twice or thrice, and so many patients were getting conceived with that, because it is not very easy to find a donor. And second thing has come that the donor's Aadhaar card and all those things will be have to kept in the bank. So just like in the West, now there is a dearth of donors because they don't want to get this identified that who donated sperm to the child, because there are cases when 500, 600 children came to a person telling them that you are my dad. So these things are happening, and it has become very difficult to get donor samples in Western countries. In Western countries, especially I think in UK or some other, if somebody has practiced there, will tell me that once a donor had 25 children, then it was said that now no more further sperm can be donated from that person for the fear of inbreeding. But India is such a large country. Here, at least we could have followed the 25 babies norm. But surprisingly, I don't know, nobody was interested in donor insemination. So this thing was just like the egg donor, the sperm donor also has been kept in the same category, that just like egg donor can donate egg to only one couple in her lifetime, simply a sperm donor can donate sperm to only one couple in his lifetime. So, and it will be very difficult. People think that they will come from different banks, then it will, so it is all going to be Aadhaar linked. It will not be so easy that you can fiddle around with those things. And the laws are very strict in case you are not following it. ART cannot be done in a woman less than 21 years. So many times a woman comes 18 years, 19 years, married at age of 14 years, husband azoospermic. So they have to be asked that you wait until you achieve age of 21 years, and then we will do the donor insemination. But this law has to be followed. A woman of 20 years, you cannot do donor insemination anymore. Now, right now, few people are saying that until state board forms, then you can do whatever you want. But what if somebody comes and catches you, then there is no way that you can say that no, that bank has not formed, or this has, they will say that why were you in so hurry when the act was come. So this is something which is my opinion. You can always take opinion of people who are more senior, who are more like medical legal guys. It can't be used if husband's age is more than 55 years. Again, this law is there that if the husband is 56 years, 57 years, then donor insemination cannot be done in that couple. And age of donor should be between 21 and 55 years. So the old donors are allowed to give samples, because we will be needing those donors, because there will be paucity of young donors. The students who come, they can give now only once. So gradually we'll have to find elderly people also to donate, but have to remember that not more than 55 years. So all records of procedure. So whoever is doing IUI, all the records, when it was done, how it was done, and result also, how many women got pregnant, has to be kept for 10 years and simultaneously sent to a national ART registry, which is being formed and will be ready within 2 months. So all this thing you have to send to a registry, everything process has to be sent. And the records have to be kept for 10 years for insemination. Semen from 2 sources can't be mixed. Many times the husband will come with very low count and say that put my sperm also and put donor sperm also. So again, this thing is something that we see in our day-to-day practice. I can see Dr. Nibha laughing because she has also come across such patients. Everybody who's doing this thing, it's not it's something that you can't blame any person for that. But with the law, you can't do this on paper at least. Screening of gamete donors, the collection, screening and storage of semen shall be done only by a bank. So now you cannot store the semen samples at your place. You cannot take semen sample at your place. You cannot transport the semen sample. So everything will be done by a ART bank in which you cannot be a partner. It has to be a different entity. So all these things are there, which is going to make even a thing like donor insemination, which was so easy and so inexpensive, it will become very expensive, because now the donors will demand that since they have to give to only one couple, then they will ask for more price. So it will become very expensive. That's Minotaur. Consent has to be taken from both the partners. It's not that if the husband says that you do and I'm ready, but you go ahead. You cannot do that thing. You have to tell the female partner also, take consent from both the partners, and only then you can do, because AID without the husband's consent can be a ground for divorce or judicial separation. A single woman can get artificial insemination with donor sperm if she is divorced or widow. Now, a single woman who has never has never married, she cannot go. Lesbians, if they are single, not ever married or in a partnership, they cannot go. Whether even they are in a partnership or not in partnership, whether they can go for that or not, we do not know. So what are the requirements for a sperm donor? The individual must be free of HIV and hepatitis B and C, hypertension, diabetes, STD, identifiable and common genetic disorders such as thalassemia. So all these things have to be done. What is the blood group and height, physical features, we have to tell the patient, we have to match it. So what are the prognostic factors with AID? We heard Dr. Kumud Ingle's presentation in which he told about the ovarian stimulation and number of cycles. So here it is slightly different. Age of woman, ovarian stimulation, count and motility of the post-thaw sample. Remember that's why it is very important to see the sample after thawing, whether it was properly frozen or not. Otherwise, the sample can be of very poor quality and give very poor result. How many number of cycles and associated pathology. So till what age? You can see here cumulative pregnancy rate after 12 cycles. We are not talking about 2 or 3 cycles here. We are talking about 12 cycles. Why it is so? Because in infertility, where you're using IUI for homologous semen, there the woman has never been given a chance to have a conception. In AID, where the husband is azoospermic, why after 2 or 3 months only? The definition of infertility is that at least there should be 12 months of unprotected intercourse, and that intercourse goes on continuously. But here you have to give only 1 day. The insemination has to be done. That also from a frozen sperm. So why do you want to restrict her? Why do you telling that something is wrong after 3 cycles? So here it is differing from homologous IUI. Here you can see that at age of 20 to 29, the pregnancy rate is almost 87%. At age 30 to 34, it is 77% after 12 cycles. This is the cumulative pregnancy rate. And even in age of group of 40 to 45, the most elderly age group, you can get 50% chance of pregnancy. So don't deny these women a chance for getting pregnant. Don't directly tell them you go directly for 41 years old lady, directly for donor oocyte or donor embryo. You can easily try 2 or 3 cycles, 4 cycles of IUI in this. And if you're patient enough to wait for 12 cycles, then the chances of pregnancy will be almost 50%. So outcome of donor versus partner sperm in intrauterine insemination in women older than 38 years. This is published just in this month, that in women aged 8 to 43 years undergoing IUI with stimulation using donor sperm compared with partner sperm did not increase the rate of pregnancy. So ovarian stimulation does not help here. So to stimulate or not, earlier there was a very classic study in 2002 by Mataras, where he said that even in donor insemination, they directly started with FSH 150 international unit, doubled the pregnancy rate compared to 100 milligram of CC. But now these things, in the same year again, it came that use of ovarian stimulation with either CC or HMG does not improve pregnancy rate in normal ovulatory women. The latest evidence is here of 2021 and 2020, in which it has been shown that just a less than 4% increase in clinical pregnancy rate and less than 1% increase in ongoing pregnancy rate with ovarian stimulation. So the difference between stimulating and not stimulating in donor group is not as much as it is in the homologous group, because in the donor group, the women are very fertile. So we will not get too much the advantage of ovarian stimulation that you are getting in subfertile women. That is not apparent here. And more than 4 times increase in the multiple pregnancy rate with ovarian stimulation. So here you have to not think, Dr. Ingle bola 3 anda chahiye, to 3 anda chahiye. Ek anda bhi kafi hai donor insemination mein if she is young and healthy. So this is the difference between donor insemination and homologous insemination. Natural cycle IUI should be considered as a first-line treatment for ovulatory women who need donor insemination. And medicated cycle should be used in older women, AMH less than 1.2, and 3 failed cycles of unmedicated insemination. In these cases, it was found that giving stimulation is helpful. And here there is effect of the total number of motile sperm inseminated. So here you can see as the vial that you are giving, number of motile sperm inseminated more than, you go to 15, then you get the maximum pregnancy rate. And after that, even if you increase the number of motile sperm, it plateaus down there. So 15 is the optimum. Less than 15, as you go down, the pregnancy rate goes down. So ideally, you should aim for 15 to 20 million motile sperm. How many cycles? Again, re-evaluation is very good after 3 cycles, but it should not be restricted. I think re-evaluation should be done after every failed cycle, and not only in IUI with the homologous, but in donor sperms women also. But in the difference again in donor is that here you don't do HSG or laparoscopy straight ahead, because the women are normal. They have never been given chances of pregnancy. At least wait for 3 or 4 months before going for invasive tests like even HSG. But for homologous IUI, we definitely do the test of the tubal patency and all the hormonal tests, because we need to know the cause of infertility in those groups. But in donor insemination, they are healthy women. So you don't need to go for very long list of investigations like doing AMH and all those things, HSG, tubal testing. After 3 or 4 failed cycles, you are justified depending upon the pelvic findings and the ovarian response. So you can see here that after 1 cycle, the pregnancy rate is 10 to 20%, but it can go up to 80% in younger age group. So up to 9 to 12 cycles can be done. Again, this is something patient will come from outside कि एक cycle IUI मेरा तो donor भी fail हो गया, तो अब IVF ही कीजिए, मेरा donor नहीं हो रहा. तो ऐसा बात, you must tell them that you have to wait. IVF में भी ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. The new studies that are coming have shown that in the unexplained infertility group, the chances of pregnancy with natural intercourse, like no treatment, IUI and IVF is the same over a period of time. So the findings are such that you should not think it patient aa gaya to isko bas IVF kar dena hai. You must know this thing, that IVF pregnancy rate, live birth rate is still 25 to 30% per cycle in around 30-35 years age group. So what can be the reasons of failure in IUI? कि जब सब औरत ठीक ही है, sperm डाल ही दिए तो बच्चा क्यों नहीं हुआ? So it is expecting too much too soon. Fecundity, human fecundity, we know is 20%, 25%. Sometimes women will come to present to you very late for the first cycle of donor insemination also. They don't want to go for donor insemination. They wait for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. बूढ़ा होने लगेगा तब लोग आएगा कि ठीक है अब कर दीजिए, कोई मेरा संपत्ति ले रहा है, कोई कुछ कर रहा है. So as Dr. English said, that out of 10 eggs, 1 is competent. So here you have to wait for some time for that golden egg to come out, but here it will come sooner because the women are of the fertile age group, the normal group women. They are not a subfertile group. The timing of your insemination should be properly timed. The sample quality, as I am emphasizing time and time again, it is very important after trying to see that whether the sample is good or not, and to rule out any associated pathology in female. ऐसा नहीं है कि ठीक है उनका ट्यूब ब्लॉक नहीं हो सकता है. So if there is any sign on ultrasound or history, then you must investigate. But you have to rule those things out also. Dealing with failures is definitely counseling, and counseling you have to do before your treatment rather than after your treatment, after the failure. The more you have counseled them before the treatment, the less disappointed they will be, and they will be ready for going for 6 cycles. पहले ही बता देने का कि 6 महीना से 1 साल का लगेगा. We tell people like 6 cycles में इतना % pregnancy rate. We never tell कि हाँ 1 cycle में pregnancy rate क्या होता है. Proper investigation, ovarian stimulation, as I told you, should be judicious, not too hard. Using samples from donors with high fecundity, now this thing will be a thing of past because the donor can give sample. There are few donors whose sample are very good, just like egg donors who give pregnancies very frequently. Similarly, there are some donors with even very low count can have very high fecundity. And checking the post-thaw sample, going for IVF for ICSI or for adoption are the things that can be done later on. So difference from homologous IUI is successful even in elderly, can be done for more number of cycles, less stimulation is used, less investigation is used, success rate is higher. So I would thank you all for listening patiently, not interrupting. Time khatam ho gaya, 7 baj gaya. Thank you, Dr. Supriya, for that. And this is some one slide which is again very favorite. I had gone for a health camp, and just next to this hospital was this Kritrim Garbhadan Kendra. The rate 40 rupees, 60 rupees, but it was a veterinary wala. So their rate also, I don't know, ART Act उन लोग पे भी लगने वाला है कि नहीं कि एक बैल केवल एक ही गाय को दे सकती है, because the bulls are allowed to give, their samples are very costly. 1-1 लाख का मैडम sample आता है हरियाणा के. There are few goats. So this is so I will thank again all the organizers for letting me this golden opportunity to talk about something which is very close to my heart.
Thank you very much, Mamshu sir. Actually, I wanted to ask a few questions, but then all those questions you've actually covered it up, because I was very, very interested in knowing about what is the impact of the new ART bill and how is it going to come down with the IUI. I think you have covered it wonderfully well, sir. I think let's take a few questions, and I will ask Renu ma'am to please carry on, ma'am, please.
Dr. Himansu.
Nibhadi.
Dr. Himanshu has explained everything very nicely, and so there is, I think, each and every question is answered in his deliberation. Thank you, Dr. Himanshu.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Himanshu. Such an elaborate and wonderful talk. You explained about the all the laws in such a detail. I think all those who have heard must be benefited with this. I'm sorry for interrupting you by laughing.
No, ma'am. No. It was nice to share the experience. It was not. You were not laughing at me.
Such funny things, people.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Himanshu, for your wonderful presentation.
Just one small question from that.
Part of the talk. It was very good, but ART Act was very informative. And I also thank both the chairpersons, Dr. Ranu Singh and Dr. Subhas Malia, for conducting it so well. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Nibha Mohan for taking question and answer. I think there will be no question.
I think there is no question. One small question about regarding blood group of the donor. Should it always be matched with husband blood group?
It should not be incompatible with the husband and wife. Like if husband and wife are A positive, then you should not give B positive blood group, because it will be very difficult, because here nobody tells the child about the that he has been conceived with donor insemination. So that's why it's so easy to get the sample of same blood group. Then why should we not match and give?
Really good.
Dr. Kundan, do you want to ask any question?
No, I think Himanshu has covered up very properly all that related to donor insemination. The only thing is that scientifically we discuss blood group matching is not mandatory, but yes, if as far as possible, and if the couple's desire is there, yes, we should really respect that decision. And it's not difficult to get the same blood group, or at least matching to wife or husband blood group. I think it's mandatory, but scientifically it doesn't matter. But I think even ART Act is not going to compel us that to match a blood group, that is sure. Even in the past and even the draft says so. Probably yes, but I think in a kind of a good practice is to match is better. Yeah. And I think there was a question about whether should we do a genetic analysis of the donor before we do a insemination. I think again it is not a mandatory, but in case if a couple requisition is there, we can put it into a special request to the ART bank, and again the ART bank has to give that genetic analysis before giving that sample to ART center. But that comes in a special request, but not as a compulsory. And that's why they have made the rule that any donor, woman or a man, I think select a donor in such a way that they should have at least children, 1 or 2, so that once they have a normal child, developed child, and without any congenital anomalies or genetic abnormality, it is ruled out. And that's why it is government says that it is very important that a donor has to have a 1 or 2 child. That era is going to go where unmarried donors have donated semen. That won't happen now henceforth. So new literature will come up, and as I said, even Himanshu will agree that we had a very fantastic results with IUI with donor sperms, but that will change probably, because now we will be using a frozen semen sample for a donation. And everybody who does practice, they do understand that vitrification or even the sperm freezing definitely have a impact on the sperm's survival. And that's why it is the post-thaw sample has to be checked very properly. In fact, post-thaw sample has to be checked properly for the count and motility to assess the prognosis of the treatment outcome.
Yes, sir. True.
Thank you. That was
when the film was came into the theater in 2012. At that time, was it not the rule that unmarried should not give the donor?
No, there was never such rule. There was never such rule, ma'am. Yeah, there was no rule for ART, any kind of rule. ICMR had given guidelines, but it was not there in guidelines also.
Okay.
It's only last year, 2021.
Yes.
Yeah, Act 2021 has come.
Yes.
But again, many points have not come out. In 2 months, when the state boards will form, then the rules and regulations, the detailed rules and regulation will come. This is only the framework. There has been some, So we'll get to know about in detail after 2 months whether the unmarried or married can give or not.
Yes.
But if anybody has got even one child, he cannot opt for second child with all those surrogacies and egg donation, and these things have, until unless the child is
Yeah, of course,
genetically
it
abnormal.
should be. It should have been included very back because it is very important issue which woman is eligible for the insemination or who is able for donation of the sperm. So it's good to see because we have limited knowledge of ART Act. I heard today in detail with your presentation. I came to know. It's good to know. Very good. Thank you so much. Now
Give me more
there any
opportunities. I will tell you about other parts of the ART Act also.
Okay.
I just restricted to the donor part.
Yes.
हिमांशु एक
Yes, ma'am.
क्वेश्चन है
हाँ,
ये
मैडम।
एक बार ही क्यों डोनर दे सकता है मतलब
मैडम ये गवर्नमेंट किया है कि अगर ज्यादा बच्चा हो जाएगा एक ही आदमी का बाद में इन ब्रीडिंग हो सकता है, इन ब्रीडिंग इसके लिए, लेकिन इसी के लिए वहां पे 25 का था कि अगर 25 लोग होते हैं, वो लोग कैलकुलेट किया था कि 25 लोग होते हैं तब इन ब्रीडिंग का चांस बढ़ेगा। ऐसे भी तो पहले एक लोग को 10 बच्चे होते थे, तो वो बट आई डोंट नो, बट दिस इज समथिंग दैट पीपल वो एग डोनेशन में भी और स्पर्म डोनेशन में भी ऐसा कर दिया है कि इनब्रीडिंग को प्रिवेंट करने के लिए, बट दैट हैज बीन बहुत प्रॉब्लम होगा प्रैक्टिस में आगे, जो लोग केवल इनफर्टिलिटी प्रैक्टिस करते हैं।
Yes.
But they'll
पेशेंट्स को भी मैडम, there will be dearth of egg donors, there will be dearth of sperm donors। तो जो स्पर्म डोनेशन इतने आसानी से हो जाता था 5,000 रुपया 10,000 रुपया में, उसके लिए हो सकता है 1 लाख भी लगे।
बिल्कुल। Nipati, is there any question in chat box?
I'm not finding any questions. They are congratulating Dr. Himanshu like anything. Excellent talks, excellent deliberation, and so many thanks and so many congratulations. And you deserve it. So it's so true, Dr. Kumar.
It was very interesting talk.
Right.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Okay, then I request Dr. Supriya Jaiswal, Secretary POG Patna OBGY Society, to propose vote of thanks. Supriya, over to you.
Thank you, Amita Di. So very happy to propose vote of thanks today. My special thanks to President Foxy, Dr. Shanta Kumari Madam, Dr. Madhuri Patel, Secretary General, Dr. Basa Mukherjee, Vice President Foxy, who accepted to be the guest of honor, and Padma Shri Dr. Kamini Rao Madam, who's been the chief guest of today's webinar. Dr. Kunden Ingel sir, you have been wonderful in designing the program, who is the chairperson Infertility Committee of Foxy. Thank you very much for your wonderful deliberation and all your inputs. Then speakers, Dr. Nandita Palshetkar Madam, she was also, I really thank her for, in spite of being so busy, she readily accepted to give a talk here. Dr. Himanshu Roy, we heard you. He is the chairperson of Infertility Committee of POGS, and we heard him talk on a very different subject. Everybody interacted with him, and very wonderful talk. Thank you for that. I thank the esteemed chairpersons, Dr. Pramila Modi Madam, who's a very senior POX member, Dr. Anita Singh Madam, Vice President, ex-Vice President Foxy, Dr. Vinita Singh, she is the President POGS, Dr. Priyankur Roy, Dr. Ranu Singh ma'am, she is the chairperson of MTP committee, but she readily agrees to all the commitments that we give to her. Thank you very much, Ranudi. And Dr. Subhash Malya, a special thanks to you, because in spite of your travel routine, everything, and you joined and you gave your inputs. Thank you, Dr. Subhash, for that wonderful, your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, and then the great POGS lively members, the great viewers of us, the past presidents, Dr. Abharani Sinha. Abhadi is always there to support us for any program, Dr. Kumkum Sinha, and many more. And then our POX members, the office bearers, the wonderful office bearers, the Dr. Vinita Singh as the president, Dr. Pragya Mishra, she is actually sent her apologies, couldn't come because of some other commitment. Then Dr. Meena Samant, chairperson of Clinical Research Committee for Foxy, always makes it a point to join our own home programs every time. Dr. Rita Kumari Jha. Then the wonderful coordinators, Dr. Amita Sinha, who is the executive member of POX, Dr. Nibha Mohan, she is the joint secretary of Patna Society, and the young budding gynecologist, Dr. Smriti Sparsh, who's the member of Infertility Committee of POGS, and also she happens to be daughter of Dr. Vinita Singh. She is a very lovely child. She's joining our group and she is also doing very well. So thank you for that, Smriti. And thank to the great these pharma partners, Shield Connect, especially Mr. Suman and Chitrakala for keeping real patients, making all the CVs and everything. So, and I also thank the ICOG chairperson, Dr. Ajay Uday Thanawala sir, who has imparted given us, awarded this ICOG points for us. So thank you very much. Thank you one and all. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Priyankur, once again, Dr. Kundanengel. So thank you very much.
On behalf of Infertility Committee, I want to really place a vote of thanks to Dr. Vinita Singh, President POGS, and Dr. Supriya Jaiswal, the General Secretary of POGS, for inviting Infertility Committee to be a part of such a August gathering and academic discussion. We are really thankful on behalf of Infertility Committee, and I extend my hand for any infertility related programs from my committee for Patna OBGYN Society. Anytime, any program, we will be always shaking hands with you, and we are always ready to be a part of your academic activities. We'll be really, we'll feel proud to be associated with you. Thank you very much once again to all of you, and to many thanks to our viewers for active participation. Thank you and have a great evening to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye.
And
Bye.
the endocrine people take rest now.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Everyone.
Dr. Priyankur and Dr. Kundan.
Dr.
Both of you.
Kundan, Dr. Priyankur, very hectic.